Hello there, welcome to another hypnosis lesson. Before we get started, I really do have to say, ignore the dogs. There are some dogs that have been going crazy outside. I've recorded this over and over again and I thought, what the heck, I really don't think the dog's going to stop barking. So if you hear that in the background, don't worry about it. I'll send them some energy, try and relax them. There's just a few houses down, someone's got a new kitten that's just been allowed outside, and it seems to love standing on the fence in front of the dogs that can't reach it and teasing them. It's been driving my dog crazy. But it's a cute little kitten and I hope they become friends. So, distractions aside, if you hear that, I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but they are going mental. What we're going to do today is we're going to put the next layer on your induction script. And this is quite an unusual one. It's not so much a language pattern, but it is incorporating all of the senses. So we want to incorporate the visual modality, auditory, kinesthetic. We're not really going to do olfactory and gustatory, so not taste and like gut feelings, smells, those kind of things. We're really going to stick with visual, auditory and kinesthetic at this point, but you will be incorporating those later. This kind of technique we're going to talk about today, we don't normally, well, I'll say most hypnotists don't normally use this on the physical relaxation part of the induction. I do, and I do recommend that you do this because it really helps to engage the person's mind much more fully than just talking about relaxation, and that will lead them into a deeper trance. But where this is most commonly used is the next step in the induction. The induction process, it starts with a stage we haven't even talked about yet, which is the pre-hypnotic talk, which is the little chat that you have with the person before hypnosis. We'll have a lesson all about that later. It's a very, very valuable part that most people overlook. So pre-hypnotic talk. The next section is the bit that we are focusing on now, which is the relaxing the physical body. What we do next is we move on to relaxing the mind, which is where this technique of incorporating all the senses usually happens. After that one, we go through a trance deepening experience to get someone into a deeper state of trance. Then there is a little intermediary section, which some hypnotists do, some don't. I don't, but I'm going to teach it to you and you can decide whether you want to use it or not, which is the client contract, where you make an agreement with the client. After that, you do either some therapy or some stage routines, whatever the purpose of the hypnosis is, then some post-hypnotic suggestions, and then you wake the person up. So that's really the stages of a session. But the stage we're on at the moment, which is the physically relaxing the body, we're going to include these visual, auditory and kinesthetic things into this to make it a little bit more powerful. There's another thing that I want to say about this. Although we are focusing on relaxing the physical body, every single layer that I'm giving you at this point, the linguistic bridges, which one did we do yesterday? Let me think. I can't remember. Well, all of those different layers, they are important at every stage of the induction. You'll be using them on the pre-talk, the physical, the mental relaxation, the trance deepener, and you'll even use them on your therapy. So what I'm doing here, I'm not just teaching you the physical relaxation part of the induction. I'm teaching you the techniques that you will use for the entire induction. So, that aside, I'm getting so distracted by those dogs. I'm really hoping the camera's not picking them up because they are so loud. But let's get into this. This is the idea of bringing all your senses into the experience and really engaging the mind. And when you do that, the sensations become much more internalised, and the external world kind of seems to fall away a little bit more. So it's a bit like if you're reading a book or watching a really good film and you're really, really getting into the story, you're going to kind of forget your surroundings. So you forget the chair that you're sitting on, and it becomes really, really engaging. So that's what we're going for here. The more senses you can include, the better. So first up, I'm going to talk about the visual sense, because this is the most common one. Most people are primarily visual. I'm not. I am primarily auditory. I'm going to talk about this in a lot more detail later when we get on to the NLP section of the course, because it's much more relevant there. But just to cover very, very quickly, people tend to fall into a few categories. Some people tend to prefer using like a visual way of thinking by imagining pictures. Other people use an auditory way of thinking by hearing sounds, and other people tune into gut feelings and instincts and that kind of stuff. We don't confine ourselves to one modality. All of us use all of them, and we all use different ones at different times, but we tend to have preferences. And my preference tends to be the auditory one. My partner's preference tends to be the visual one. And she's, we're both quite arty, but she's much better than me at that kind of stuff. And I'm quite good with music, so that's where the auditory thing comes in. So I'm going to talk about the visual one first. The idea here is, rather than just saying to a person your legs are relaxing, imagine your legs relaxing, we're going to connect it to something that they can visualise, and when they visualise it, it's going to make this relaxation more powerful. And I've put 3 different ways down that you can do this. The first one is to connect it with something that when you imagine it, that thing evokes feelings of relaxation. And the way that I use this, I'll just go through this the way that I might say it to somebody. Just imagine all the muscles in your legs relaxing, the muscles becoming nice and limp and loose now, like a handful of loose elastic bands. You see how that works? A handful of loose elastic bands. There's no tension, there's no stress in that. It brings a real nice, clear visual image to people, and everybody can relate to this, of being all floppy and loose and relaxed and totally stress-free. So I kind of connect the idea of muscles becoming limp and loose with that visual image of those elastic bands just flopping around. You might also do something similar with the idea of a wet dish rack, that kind of thing. The second way that you might use this, and it's a very, very powerful technique this is to have the person imagine that they are watching their body relaxing. So you might say, just imagine now that you're floating up out of your body, and as you turn around and look at your body relaxing on the chair, I'd like you to imagine how your body might look if you were 10 times more deeply relaxed. That's fine. And now just imagine that your body is beginning to merge into that wonderful feeling of being 10 times more deeply relaxed. So with that one, we've kind of disassociated them from their body a bit, which was similar to what we did with our hand locking when we said those hands instead of your hands. So there's a little bonus in there, but also we said imagine what your body will look like if it was more relaxed. So they're imagining how they'll look. So if they were lying there just like this, and you do that, they might see themselves going like this. And once you tell them to connect to it, you'll see that their actual physical body starts to merge with their body looking more relaxed. So it's a really powerful technique that incorporates visual and it incorporates the kinesthetic feelings once they start to move into that visual image. The next one, incredibly common, this one, and you're going to use this. This is the one that people really do often use on the physical relaxation, and that's to get people to imagine feelings of relaxation as though they are colours or lights moving around their body. So the way you might use this one, you could say, imagine your feet are relaxing now, just becoming nice and limp and loose. And as you imagine those wonderful feelings of relaxation and comfort beginning to spread into your ankles, you may like to visualise this feeling as a colour. Now you can choose any colour you wish as you imagine this colour now beginning to soak up into your legs, soaking into the muscles and the bones and carrying that wonderful feeling of relaxation with it. So you see how that works? We get the feeling of relaxation, we connect that with a colour, and then we get the person to imagine that colour spreading around the body. Now this works really well, because you can get them to imagine that they're breathing the colour in, you can get them to imagine that the room is filling up with the colour and it totally saturates them. So that's a really powerful way of completely flooding them with that feeling. We're going to move on now to the next modality. This one we're going to use auditory, so it's sounds that are relaxing. There's a little trick that I like to use here, which is the idea of getting them to hear the sounds inside their own head slower than they really are. Now, when you start to hypnotise a person, very, very probably they're going to be thinking thoughts, and most people will hear those thoughts like an internal dialogue. Now, you can say to them something along the lines of, as you listen to the sound of my voice, thoughts can be thought, and it's okay for you to think them. But whatever thoughts you're thinking right now, just imagine those thoughts are beginning to slow down. So hear that voice inside your head becoming so slow, and the words are beginning to drag out longer and longer. And the slower that voice becomes, the deeper you can go into trance. So you see how that works? It's a really powerful technique which helps to take something that is normally a distraction, their internal dialogue, and turn it into something which is going to aid the trance. You can also use, get them to imagine certain sounds that would be relaxing. So I've just thought of a couple here. The sound of yawning. So when you're talking to them, you can kind of speak to them as though you're getting really tired. And you can imagine just yawning and having a nice big sigh. So you see how that works, incorporating sounds that are relaxing. Another couple that I've written down is a cat purring. I find that a really relaxing sound. If the person hates cats, don't use that one, but it's great for cat lovers. The sound of the ocean lapping against the shore, that's a lovely relaxing sound. Similarly, the wind in the trees, a nice gentle summer breeze, or wind chimes. Any of those things are very, very relaxing. Or the sounds of a crackling fire. Now, when you're doing the physical relaxation, not many of those things would really be applicable. But when you move on to the next section and you're getting the person to visualise a relaxing experience, like lying on a beach, then you can use that idea of listening to the sound of the ocean lapping against the shore as being a very relaxing way of incorporating that auditory modality. So it's very powerful. Next up, the kinesthetic, which is feelings. So the idea of feelings becoming relaxing. This one is very, very powerful. One that I like to use, if I'm getting someone to imagine their feet relaxing, I might say something like, imagine your feet relaxing now. And you may like to imagine that you're having a wonderful foot massage, just allowing all the stress and the tension of the day to be massaged away from your feet. Or maybe you can imagine relaxing and soaking your feet in some nice warm soapy water. So either one of those, it's a very, very strong feeling that most people can relate to. They are very relaxing experiences, and you can use that kind of thing all the way through the body. It's great for the shoulders because most people hold tension in their shoulders. So when you do the shoulders, if you say imagine that you're having a nice shoulder rub and all that tension is being really released now, it's a fantastic way of getting them to add in that those feelings, that kinesthetic modality, to really enhance the relaxation process. Another one that you might have heard this one actually, Paul McKenna uses this one all the time, and I've stolen it from him. I use it because I really do like it and I can relate to it. It's when he's relaxing people's legs, specifically the thigh muscles. He says, imagine your legs relaxing now, as though you've been running and now you can rest. So it's a very, very common Paul McKenna one, that one. The idea of having really, really tired muscles. And most people can relate to that, so it really works nicely. The next one, that idea of heaviness. Heaviness is something that the idea of something getting really light and floaty, that works. The idea of something getting really heavy also works. Those two things are equally relaxing. It doesn't matter which direction you go. But with the heaviness, one of the things that I like to do is to get people to imagine that their legs or their arms are made of lead, so they become really heavy. Or to imagine that they've got bags of sand resting on their arms, and if they attempted to try to lift them, they'd find that the sandbags are weighing them down really, really heavy and tired. With the light one, you can get people to imagine a really light, fluffy, floaty feeling. You can almost imagine that your hands are entirely weightless. And you can imagine them floating away like a little fluffy cloud, just gently floating through the sky on a summer breeze. So we can see how that brings in feelings, and then when we move over to the sky, it also brings in visual. This is what I want you to do, incorporate all the senses as much as you can. So that's all for today. I'm very quickly approaching 15 minutes, so I'm going to cut this one short. But think of ways that you can incorporate all of the senses and have fun. So until next time, you take care and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.